Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to be introducing the second market structure, which is monopoly. So let's get started. First, obviously, a monopoly, one firm. So there's actually only going to be one graph. The market graph and the firm graph are the same. Great. Woohoo. Second thing to know about monopolies. When monopolies decide they want to sell another unit of a product, they actually have to lower the price, at least for what we call a single price monopolist. So, in other words, if they have, for example, price 10, well, they're not going to sell any units. And so their total revenue would be zero, and there's not really a marginal revenue. But if they wanted to sell, say, one unit, well, they'd price it at, say, 9. This is a demand curve, right? This is just demand. And that means their total revenue is 9. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in this marginal revenue column as well. That one's also 9 because it's the change in revenue associated with selling that first unit. Now, when they go to sell a second unit, they're going to actually have to lower the price. And they have to lower the price from 9 to 8 in order to sell the second unit because actually they deal with the entire market demand curve. Now, what that means is that their marginal revenue is actually a little bit smaller. Notice that their total revenue was 16 because 2 times 8, but going from 9 to 16 is only 7. And it may not become immediately apparent why when they sold a unit for 8, they only got $7 worth of revenue from that unit. But the reason why is that they had to lower the price of the first unit. Where they used to be getting $9 from that first unit, well, now they're only getting 8. So actually, by selling the second unit for 8, they're giving up $1 of revenue that they used to earn on the first unit, and they're gaining basically the second unit, which they had $8 from. So they actually only gained 7 in revenue. If you think about it another way, if they produce 3 units, they wanted to make 3. Let's say 3 was their profit maximizing quantity. Well, their total revenue is 21, leaving them with marginal revenue of 5. And why that one is lower 2 compared to the 7, so it went down 5 versus 7, is actually because you had to lower the price of 2 units prior to it. So in other words, when you went from unit 2 to unit 3, you sold that third unit and you gained $7 worth of revenue from the third unit. But at the same time, you had to give up $1 for the second unit because you had to lower the price from 8 to 7, and you had to give up another dollar from the first unit when you lowered that unit's price from 8 to 7. So you didn't gain in total $7 of revenue by selling the third unit, you only gained 5. So another way to think about it is every single time you're gaining a little bit in terms of what you sell, that's the quantity, but lowering the price means that actually you're going to give up a little bit more as you continually increase your amounts of production. We can see they maximize total revenue at basically this midpoint, and then from there they actually start giving up revenue, and it works kind of in reverse. And that's because this is the inelastic range of a demand curve. Just like we learned in Unit 2 that every demand curve has an elastic and an inelastic range, we would say that a monopolist's demand curve has an inelastic and an elastic range. And in this case, they're lowering the price, and it's actually lowering their total revenue every single time. And so for a monopoly firm, they have to contend with the entire demand curve, actually. And so what we observe is that because of that, they have a demand curve that tells them the price they can charge, but they have a separate marginal revenue curve that actually bifurcates from the very beginning. For the first unit, they're going to be the same, but after that point, they're going to split. So let's actually go ahead and start constructing our first monopoly graph. And so our first monopoly graph, we're going to have a nice big axis here, draw it nice and big, price and quantity. And then we're going to have demand come down just like that. And just as a reminder, that demand curve is going to tell us the price, but the marginal revenue curve is going to come down faster than that. And so again, it's going to be up here at the very first unit, but past that point, these two kind of diverge a little bit. Now, the other kind of parts to know about a monopolist, well, they have high barriers to entry. So in theory, they could earn profit in ad infinitum, and there wouldn't be any long-run adjustment. There are 2 types of monopolies. There's first type we're going to learn about is called artificial. And this type uses exactly the same cost structures as any other firm. They just happen to be the only firm in the market. It could be they bought up all their competitors. It could be that they bought up all the resources used to make the product. It could be that they just happen to be the only one in the geographic area. Generally speaking, if they have a patent, right? Generally speaking, we say artificial monopolies are kind of the normal looking monopolies. We are in another video going to look at a different type of monopoly called a natural monopoly. Now, monopolies, just like everything else that we've talked about, they find profit maximization where MR equals MC, and they actually choose the price on the demand curve at that quantity. And so it's very important that when we find the price, we know it's not at the MR equals MC intercept. That just tells us just the quantity, right? That one, the MR equals MC is just the quantity. They're going to go up to the demand curve to actually find the price that they can charge. We call them price makers because they choose the price as a result of them determining that quantity. So once they find the quantity, they just pick a price that goes correspondingly with it. And as a result of that, they really technically don't have a supply curve. There's no increasing quantity supplied in response to a higher price, because they're the ones picking the price. That means that they really only have a marginal cost curve. Now, you're not going to get dinged if you do the thing where you draw this marginal cost and you write MC equals S, but it's more technically accurate just to say MC for a monopoly. So let's add a couple more cost curves on here. Now that we've got our demand and marginal revenue drawn correctly, everything else is exactly the same it's going to be from the previous cost structures. So we have a downward sloping and then comes back up marginal cost curve. And this firm is earning a profit. So we know that we're going to determine MR equals MC. That's how much they're producing. That's the quantity that the firm produces. And I said just a moment ago that they don't price right here. They actually use the demand curve. Because if you think about where these numbers come from, this demand curve is actually telling us the prices they can charge. So we're going to go doot, 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 all the way up here, put another dot on that demand curve and go over. And that's the most common mistake that actually this firm, or the most common mistake that folks make, is they don't know where to put the price. They try to put the price down here. Those silly gooses, you're not going to make that mistake. Now, in order to show this firm in profit, we need to have the price be bigger than the ATC. And so we're going to draw somewhere maybe down here. I'm going to have it come down, hit that minimum point, and come back up again. And so again, it does still need to cross through the ATC. It needs to be crossed through at its minimum by that marginal cost curve. Now, at the quantity that we're producing at, we have an ATC value, and we can connect those two. That to that value is just the profit per unit. And then we're going to kind of extend that over here and shade the area of the profit rectangle. So it's in the same spot that we had from perfect competition. It's just the demand and the marginal revenue look a little different. So this would be coincidental if they earned normal profit. Coincidence? It doesn't have anything to do with maybe like a requirement that they return to zero economic profit where price equals ATC. So we're going to draw one here that shows what an artificial would look like in break even, but understand there's no real rule that says they would ever need to earn break even. And in fact, it would be kind of unusual for them to. Marginal cost. So once again, they determine where to produce here, Q sub F, and then we go up, find that price from the demand curve. They price on the demand curve. And now, if price equals ATC at the quantity we're producing at, it's going to be a little weird, but we're going to come down. We're going to just touch that dot, keep coming down, hit the minimum point, right? So the minimum still needs to be here, and it's a little tricky, but you'll be able to do it. And then it comes back up again. So again, here the price is equal to the ATC. And then the very last picture that we're going to draw is an artificial monopoly earning a loss. Womp womp, so sad. You have all that monopoly power and you just can't get your costs down. Oh, you poor baby. So we have marginal revenue diverging from demand once again. And again, we're just kind of practicing here. Marginal cost, we find MR equals MC, and we actually price on that demand curve. We got to keep reminding ourselves that we need to do that. So there's the price on the demand curve. And when they're losing money, the price is less than the ATC. So we're just going to put an ATC higher up here, hit that minimum, take our pen off, and then come back up again. And we connect here, right, up to here. That's going to be our loss per unit, going from the price up to the ATC. And then we connect over, and we get a nice loss rectangle. All right, so hopefully this helped you understand some of the kind of basic concepts a little bit. Just as a quick review and a reminder, remember you have an elastic and an inelastic range of a demand curve, and it really hinges actually right here where marginal revenue crosses that 0 point. That would be right where total revenue is maximized. So there are sometimes some weird little questions that are like, where is this point? Where's total revenue maximized? That's going to be right where MR equals 0. So I'm going to write that here, MR equals 0. If you ever got a question that said, hey, what range of the demand curve maybe is the artificial monopolist producing in? Well, the QF, because MR is greater than 0, like it's in this range where MR is above the axis here, QF would be in this range, the elastic range, where MR is greater than 0. So if you ever got a question that said, where is QF? Are they in the elastic, inelastic, unit elastic? You could just say elastic because marginal revenue is greater than 0. And in fact, it's always true that monopolists will always produce in the elastic range. They would always produce in that range because they're always going to be profit maximizing where MR equals MC. All right, so hopefully this helped you introduce you to monopoly. I'll see you next time.